family? It's your boy, Fury Styles, aka POW, Prisoner of War. And in this video, I'm breaking down critical race theory in 25 minutes. Alright? Truth sounds like hate. The people who hate the truth. Hope y'all love this video. It's a lot of misnomer, misconception, and false information about what critical race theory really is, who is it affecting, and why do we need it. So I hope you love the video. Thanks for the new subscribers and the new love. I appreciate y'all.
Of critical race theory is to provide Americans with a way to understand the legacy of racism, even though those stories sometimes...
Social studies and about our democracy and our country is the learning where students can really grapple with the issues and really come to a deeper understanding of how our path country.
A set of approaches to understanding the history and present of American society that looks at the ways in which racial unfairness have been woven into the fabric of our institutions.
In other words, critical race theory, or CRT for short, is a legal academic framework centered on the idea that racism is systemic. It first started to coalesce in the 1970s when Black, Hispanic, and Asian legal scholars were researching the persistence of inequality despite the landmark legal victories of the civil rights era.
The legal scholars undertook a set of analyses and investigations that were aimed at trying to make sense of the puzzling persistence of racism in our legal system, in our political system, in our economy.
CRT has been studied in fields like sociology, economics, and political science. It's been used to examine issues such as housing and educational segregation, unconscious bias, and criminal justice reform. In Texas, for instance, House Bill 3979 says teachers must explore current events from multiple positions without giving, quote, deference to any one perspective.
There's language in this bill, like teachers need to present a balanced perspective on current events, for instance. You know, they have to do their due diligence to present multiple viewpoints. But what happens if they're talking about an issue in the classroom and they try to present multiple viewpoints, but you know the student comes home and tells their parent about the lesson that day, and the parent thinks, well, they didn't do a good enough job of presenting this viewpoint. So who decides when the teacher has done an adequate job of presenting multiple perspectives on an issue? It saddens me and disappoints me that instead of really embracing this opportunity to confront our nation's past and to tell authentic and more accurate narratives about experiences of diverse people in this country, that we're looking to sweep it under the rug. We're looking to erase it even further from our memories.
Restricting how schools and businesses can address the subject of race. Lisa Desjardins has more on the cultural battles that are playing out in the Sunshine State.
Florida is again in the middle of cultural and political debate as a law went into effect in the last week governing some diversity training on the job and teaching about race at schools. Joining me to talk about this and Republican Governor Ron DeSantis' overall approach is Ana Ceballos, who covers state politics for the Miami Herald. First, to help out our viewers, let me cover what this law does. This law is called the Stop Woke Act, and it essentially codifies a ban on teaching critical race theory, including the concept of white privilege in K-12 schools. It would block businesses from requiring some kinds of diversity and inclusion training, and it would enforce all of that using lawsuits or penalties up to $10,000. Ana, what is the practical effect?
Adults that banned these books have read these books?
Absolutely not.
No, definitely not.
Absolutely. Because I don't think a moral compass could let you ban books that say equality and loving each other.
These teenagers in York, Pennsylvania are standing up to the latest example of controversy surrounding history and race that is affecting a growing number of America's public schools.
The school board cannot just silence our voices.
Last fall, the all-white school board of the Central York School District unanimously banned a list of educational resources.
And that resource list, which has a lot of bad ideas and some books that I would definitely not want in our district.
And I do not feel it's balanced, and I think it's divisive.
That list includes a children's book about Rosa Parks, Malala Yousafzai's autobiography, CNN's Sesame Street Town Hall on racism.
Racism? What's that?
Marxists and the critical race theorists.
Push against CRT gained steam under former President Trump when he directed federal agencies to end any diversity trainings related to critical race theory. Though ultimately blocked on First Amendment grounds and rescinded by President Biden, the fight over CRT at the state level is still in full effect.
The focus on CRT is a way to latch race theory isn't to the critical race theory narrative.
The critical race theory in this discussion, the guy who was billed as...
That's right. CRT, like a lot...
It's absolutely astonishing how critical race theory has pervaded every...
Critical race theory training in federal agencies, it's the stuff that claims all...
Such as critical race theory, things that have nothing to do with math. So Governor just condemned critical race theory in our kids' classrooms. Our next guest is...
Denounce critical race theory. Critical race theory is critical racism.
Teaching critical race theory nearly...
And racist critical race theory. The left has commenting about critical race theory, about mass. Who else who doesn't like critical race theory is... Can you guess? Yeah, you guessed it.
Blacks on the bottom, but they have no idea what to do with Asian Americans because Asian Americans are a minority. You know, they have principles of critical race theory.
We have had a group of change
governments, not the federal government. We certainly shouldn't be stepping in with critical race theory. Look, we should be celebrating diversity. Critical race theory doesn't celebrate diversity. It weaponizes it. That's bad for America. And it...
Happening in our schools and our military and our government is both simpler and easier to recognize than that. It's not critical race theory. It's racism. Not neo-racism or reverse racism. Those are meaningless terms. It is race hate. It is peddled by the people in charge in the hope that it will make them more powerful. That's all it is.
Not a hill you want to die on. Critical race theory? My goodness, this country's against this by like 3 to 1.
must gonna be teaching kids how to hate each other, how to dislike each other. That's pretty much all campus is pretty much what it's gonna all come down to. You're gonna deliberately teach kids this white kid right here got it better than you because he white. You're gonna personally tell a white kid, oh, the black people are all down and suppressed. How do I have 2 medical degrees if I'm sitting here oppressed? How did I get no mom, no dad in the house. Work my way through college. Sat there and hustle my butt off and get through college. You gonna tell me?
Arising from institutional racism and white supremacy in our schools. What will that message gain us? What type of inspiration are we expecting people to get from this, from critical race theory?
The social justice standards are a roadmap for anti-bias education at every stage of kindergarten through 8th grade instruction.
Are our kids, are they half oppressor, half victim? How does that work? And when they come home, who do they see? Do they see their mom and their dad? Or do they see an oppressor and the oppressed?
Developmentally, we know they can be activists, but we must build their capacity for seeing injustice first.
And do they see me as the person who is losing out on all of this because I'm black and the system has been stacked against me? All schools are rooted in white supremacy. Racism is really systematized. So it's in the air we breathe. It's in the water we drink. It is truly all around us. Because of our skin color, now we're different people than the people that are raising them, the people who love.
Non-commissioned officers of being, quote, woke or something else because we're studying some theories that are out a power differential with African Americans that were 3/4 of a human being when this country was formed. And then we had a Civil War and Emancipation Proclamation to change it. And we brought it up to the Civil Rights Act in 1964. It took another 100 years to change that. So look, I do want to know. And I respect your service, and you and I are both Green Berets. But I want to know. And it matters to our military and the discipline and cohesion of this military. And I thank you for the opportunity to make a comment on that.
The verbiage, critical race theory. Let me talk about critical race theory. Across this entire country, you've had states like Texas, Idaho, and others pass laws banning the teaching of critical race theory. You have a band of Karens who have launched assaults against school boards, saying, don't teach our children critical race theory. Here's the reality of it, ladies and gentlemen. K-12 education does not teach critical race theory. As a matter of fact, colleges, undergrad, they don't even teach critical race theory. It's considered to be an advanced theoretical framework. Graduate level classes typically will teach critical race theory if you're taking particular courses. Now, why are they saying they are banning critical race theory? Don't fall for the okie dokie. See, I'm from Glenwood Road. I peep game. They're simply running game on Republicans, moderates, independents, and trying to run game on those on the left. But it doesn't work here. We are immune to game. CRT, critical race theory, has been around since the 70s. It's not a new concept. It is a derivative of the legal graduate level classes typically will teach critical race theory if you're taking particular courses. Now, why are they saying they are banning critical race theory? Don't fall for the okie dokie. See, I'm from Glenwood Road. I peep game. They're simply running game on Republicans, moderates, independents, and trying to run game on those on the left. But it doesn't work here. We are immune to game. CRT, critical race theory, has been around since the 70s. It's not a new concept. It is a derivative of the legal scholarship concept, which examined racism as it correlates to systems, institutions, policies, not just people. In other words, if you eliminated or decreased the number of individual racist people in America, you would still have to contend with the fact that you have racist policies and racist norms connected to institutions. Let me give you another example. The U.S. Constitution called me 3/5 of a person. That's called an institutional racist norm. The Declaration of Independence, another founding document of our nation, called Native Americans savages. That's an institutional racist norm. Those institutions continue to permeate today. Critical race theory, ladies and gentlemen, not taught in K-12 education. There is no school teacher who has ever taught this in K-12 education. As a matter of fact, when you went to high school, did you learn critical race theory? Of course not. This is a fabricated pretext in order to create a context to stop critical thinking, not critical theory. That's what this is all about. The bills that have been proposed and the bills that have been passed do not contain the verbiage critical race theory. Isn't that something? They don't have the verbiage that says CRT. They do say race, racism, racial, and even sexism. Those words are inside of these bills. The fabricated pretext is critical race theory to create the context to serve an agenda that says let's stop thinking critically about what white racist lawmakers did in this country. That's what this is about. Let me give you another example of how Republicans have played this game before. Remember the weapons of mass destruction? Remember that? Once again, a fabricated pretext in order to create a context to serve their agenda.
Imprisoned or otherwise eliminated from participating in the electoral process. The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine. Correct. Anyway, 75.
One would think this corner.
So I want to make sure we flesh all this out. I have just a couple of questions, just clarifying questions, so I understand where you stand. You want to completely ban critical race theory in Georgia public schools. Is that accurate?
That is accurate because of the contents of it. I think that it clearly needs to be reevaluated. What it is doing is just creating an environment that is hostile towards one race or another. And I don't think we should be in that posture. I think there's a way that we can strike a balance where no child is feeling like, hey, because of my race, I'm paying for something I had nothing to do with. So that's all. I just think it needs to be redone, revamped, and amended.
Okay. What is critical race theory?
Well, actually, I think it's different depending on who's teaching it and how they're teaching it. I think you can agree with that. We were taught that Christopher Columbus discovered America. Well, you and I both know that Christopher Columbus got lost. People are already living here. But there are those who are using their own ideology and their own party affiliation to go to the extreme. And that's all I'm trying to address here.
But what does that have to do with critical race theory? Let me pause for a second. I'm trying to understand, though. You oppose critical race theory, which I understand. I'm just asking, what is it? What is the thing you define it? Like, for example, if I said I'm against creationism, I would say creationism is X, Y, and Z, right? If I said I was against the teaching of sex education, I say, well, sex education is X, Y, and Z, and I'd have a basis for it. What is critical race theory?
Well, first of all, again, I can tell you, but it's left up to you to understand. I can't make you understand. Fact of it is, the critical race theory, even on its basis, should not be taught in our schools, period. Now, if you can't understand
but what is it?
And if you want to debate, well, to me, what it does, to me, my interpretation, as well as many others.
No, not what it does. What is it? How do you define it? I'm just asking you to define critical race theory because my audience may not know.
Well,
say it again?
Obviously you don't know. And you haven't, I said, obviously you don't know, and you haven't told your audience. But again, how I see it, and how
I don't know.
Received. Well, then what is it then? No, what is it then? Okay,
well, I'm happy to answer that for you, but you're saying
just answer. I'll tell you what. Just answer it for me. Let's not get into debate. Okay, I'm waiting for you to answer. Go ahead and answer.
I will. Just hold on 1 second.
Just answer.
You're saying that on day one.
No, answer the question first. Answer the first question.
I promise I'll answer your
question. Well, I want you to answer before you move on.
That's fine.
What is it? You can't tell your audience what it is.
I think
if you can't tell your audience what it is.
Sir, I'm going to answer.
Is that what you're saying, sir?
Right, in order
you tell me you can't tell your audience.
In order for us to have a conversation, we can't talk over each other, brother. I'm happy to answer your question, but I want to finish my question on my show. So what I'm saying is, on day one, you've made a statement that on day one, you're going to have an executive order to ban something, and you have yet to define what the thing is you're going to ban. I'm happy to answer it. I happen to have expertise in this area, but I would think because you are going to make you're going to make as an executive order a ban of something. I would think that you would have a definition of it. You've told me what it does. You've mentioned Christopher Columbus, which has nothing to do with critical race theory. Critical race theory. You asked me to answer your question. There's plenty of time. We can go 3 segments. We got all night, so we'll have all the time in the world, brother. I do want to answer.
I didn't ask you for an editorial. I asked you to answer, and you went through editorial. And let me say this. First of all, I'm on your show.
So critical race theory.
I didn't ask to be on your show. Let's be clear. Now, I'll let you talk. Now, allow me to talk. You dial into me and ask me to come on your show. You're not correct. So don't pull that card that this is your show, because I got drafted. I didn't try for your team. You asked me to come on your show, so let's be clear about it. Effectively, we have not answered what is the critical race theory, because no matter what I said, I told you I would ban it. That's it. Now you tell me what it is. Tell me, since you're the expert.
Sure.
Because you these so-called experts. Did you write it? Did you write it? Did you write it? You're the expert. Did you write it?
Okay. So
what makes you expert? What makes you an expert?
What makes me an expert is that for the last 15 years, I've been a trained scholar with an Ivy League PhD who has written and studied race. What makes me an expert is that I've lectured widely around the world on critical race theory.
PhDs come a dime a dozen. So because you have a PhD, you're an expert. But what county?
No, I don't actually. Actually, a PhD does make you an expert.
Don't pull that PhD.
Actually, sir,
what it says is that you walk around like you got a PhD, but you know what? You're just as dumb as two left shoes because you're a PhD.
Whoa. We're not.
Academic.
Sir. Here's what we're not going to do. Here's what. Y'all got to mute his mic. Y'all got to mute his mic. Y'all got to mute his mic. This is what I'm saying. If you talk over me, we're not going to name call on the show. I have not name called you, sir. You have come on this show. You're a black Republican. I have not called you a name. I've not called you Uncle Tom. I've not called you a handkerchief head. I've not called you a Sambo. I've not called you a shine. I've not called you a ham bone. I haven't done any of that. So you're not going to come on my show and call me dumb. What I will tell you is that critical race theory is a theory that actually emerged out of critical legal studies. It is a theory that makes an attempt to understand the law through the lens of race, and it's founded on some fundamental presumptions. One is the intractability of race and racism, meaning that it's an intractable problem in America, and that we have to use the lens of race to make sense of things. It also is based on the use of counter stories. Listening to as Derek Bell, the critical race scholar, said, the voices at the bottom of the well to make sense of the world and to make sense of the law. These are two big theories, two big pillars of it. And so what we want to do, if you want to ban it, you have to explain to me why. But the problem is, all these Republicans, all of these scholars, all of these Republicans, all of these non-scholars, they say, I'm going to ban critical race theory, and they can't answer it. And then he says, well, if you can't answer it, then you must not know what it is. It's on some like he who smelt it dealt it kind of logic. The fact of the matter is he can't define it because he don't know what it is. They look for things to ban to signal to white people, hey, I got your back. They ban things that aren't even an issue. There is no public school teacher in America who is attempting to put critical race theory in schools. Critical race theory isn't even taught in high school. It's not even really taught in college. It is taught in law school, and it has increasingly been taught in graduate school because it is a set of theories and understandings to make sense of our lived realities through the law and through everyday life. Those are the things we should be talking about. So if you want to be a black Republican, your first day in office as governor, which you ain't going to be because you ain't going to beat Stacey Abrams as a black Republican, you only in the line because the line is short. But if you want to do this, your first thing, not to ban bullying, not to try and do something against the violence of LGBT students, not to do something about the gap in resources. Instead, you're going to ban a theory that nobody's trying to bring in the first place. That is a smoke signal to white America and really to white racists.
Critical race theory just says, let's pay attention to what has happened in this country and how what has happened in this country is continuing to create differential outcomes so we can become that country that we say we are. So critical race theory is not anti-patriotic. In fact, it is more patriotic than those who are opposed to it because we believe in the 13th and the 14th and the 15th Amendment. We believe in the promises of equality, and we know we can't get there if we can't confront and talk honestly about any.
I pray that the Karens of the world one day will care about school-to-prison pipeline, urban black schools having low funding, lack of resources, and the whitewashing of history. I wish they cared about those things as much as they cared about little Billy and little Cindy learning about their history. Hope you love the video. It's your boy Furious Styles, aka POW, Prisoner of War. I hope you learned something and took something away. I know it's been a lot of propaganda, a lot of agendas, and a lot of basically just blatant lying, right? But we must fight for our ancestors. Not only their reparations and what's due to them, but we got to fight for their respect. We got to fight for their name. We got to fight for that, all that blood that's soaked into the fabric of that flag that they hold so dear. All right? We got to hold their feet to the fire. This thing is deeper than just wanting reparations and restitution. This is about doing what's right. And it's about holding the truth over everything. Because we all know, father of all lies, father of all liars, we know how these people roll. So, it's your boy, Furious Styles, aka POW, Prisoner of War. Truth sounds like hate. The people who hate the truth. We sick, boss. We sick, boss. Mass is sick, now we sick. And the only immunity is unity.